Most of the best hockey that I've ever seen and all of the best hockey that I've ever covered has happened in the Olympics. And with those going on right now, well, the summer version over in Paris, I'm going to bring up a subject that I'm not all that comfortable with, okay? Good morning to you. Good Wednesday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports, and this is Daily Shot of Penguins. Comes your way bright and early every weekday. If you're into football and or baseball, I also offer daily shots of Steelers and Pirates in the same place that you found this. Did you ever have that conversation with a buddy about which of Sid's many, many goals should be his statue goal? I find most often that when I have this conversation with people, I know what my thought is, but when I hear from them, they'll come back with the one against the Islanders when he returned from his concussion, the so-called F yeah goal, because of the two syllables that he exclaimed as he spun out of that right corner. You'll recall. Great backhand shot, too. Just classic Sid in every way. And the fact that it happened in Pittsburgh, and wonderful. And this is where it gets a little cringy, because the next thing that crosses your mind might be, let's say, the shootout goal in the Winter Classic snow game, the first outdoor game for the NHL up in Buffalo. It might be the insane shootout goal, the backhander behind Jose Theodore of the Canadiens that sent that water bottle flying at the Civic Arena. But as you continue doing this, it can occur to you at some point that, you know, all I'm really doing here is delaying the international goals, delaying all the ones that he scored while representing Canada, not while representing Pittsburgh. And that kind of stinks when that happens, because you might also dredge up some of those feelings that you had, let's say in 2010, when they're playing in Vancouver, the Canadians are, against the Americans. And I don't know about you, but, you know, I consider myself to be an American and not a Canadian. And I didn't really care who Sid was representing at this point. And as spectacular as it was to be there, I was about 40 feet away from where he scored. And to, you know, go down there and get the interviews, including from him and everyone else involved. And it's, you know, when you leave the place, it's not a great feeling. So speaking for myself, I never want to hear that goal, the one that Jerome McGinley set up, the one that went through Ryan Miller's pads, is his greatest goal. I never, ever want to hear that. The problem with it, the problem with saying that or even thinking it, is that if you go over Sid's career, he's scored a ton of playoff goals. He's been as clutch gets. The first cup run, the first full cup run, I should say, in 2009, Sid had 15 goals in those playoffs. 15. But there wasn't one that just screamed out to you. There wasn't one where you said, now that's the iconic moment. And you could do that through 2016. You can do that through 2017. Yes, he had an overtime goal. This episode is brought to you by Bet Online, your number one source for all your summer sports needs this season, from Major League Baseball, golf, NHL, NBA playoffs. Get the latest odds and lines, including all team matchups, player props, odds on just about everything that's out there. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. Bet Online, where the game starts. Yes, he was the one who spun out of the corner to set up Chris Kunitz in the double overtime against the Senators to send the Penguins to that final against Nashville. But there isn't that, you know, that I never compare people to Mario, and I'm not doing that now, but at least when you think of Mario's greatest goal, you don't have to wonder about it. Yeah, he had one. He had one. For Canada, a really big one, too, in 1987 to beat the Russians. But you'll never hear anyone say that's his greatest goal, because there's always going to be the one that he got in 1991 against the North Stars, splitting Neil Wilkinson and Sean Chambers. Still to this day, I don't have an adjective for it. I'm not even going to try. then coming in and backhanding the puck so easily past John Casey, like Casey was just wasting his time. But from there, you go to the very next year in Game 1 against the Blackhawks and pumping that puck home. Less than 10 seconds left, taking that risk on the power play, jumping in from the left point. Larry Murphy and Ron Francis combined to get it to him, and he doesn't just score it. See, this is what I'm doing. And I don't want to do this. I want to do this about Sid. And what I want is that for the final 3 years of his career, in some form or fashion, that he will come up with a goal. And I understand this is the latter part of his career, so it's less likely now than what it would have been when he was a kid. But that doesn't mean it isn't possible. We've seen Sid still consistently put together spectacular sequences. And heck, we're not all that far removed from the one-hander in Buffalo. He's capable of all that, and that's what I want. I don't want his next great or memorable goal to be in the Milan Olympics in a couple of years. That's what I'm getting at here. When we come back, J1Q. J1Q comes from Evan. It's a good one, too. He says, DK, under what circumstances would you see Marcus Pettersson getting traded? I don't want it to happen. I feel he's the most underrated player on the team by fans, but I doubt that other NHL front offices underrate him, and I can see him moving before his contract expires. Well, Evan, where I'd like to steer that conversation, if I might, is just wrap him up. This is not a player you have to worry about. This isn't someone who's going to get fat off of a big guaranteed deal. This isn't someone who's going to go into a slump right after putting pen to paper. And that's not, believe it or not, a shot at Ricard Raquel. I just think he had a weird year. But where Pettersson's concerned, the character, the leadership, the accountability, the consistency, the dependability that this player has. When you hear Kyle Dubas state, as he did unequivocally, this was, if memory serves, it was around December of this past year, that the two most consistent players on his roster were Sidney Crosby and Marcus Pettersson. Yes, some of that was a critique of other guys that he was expecting more from. I'm sure it was. I'm not inside his brain, but, makes sense. But it also tells you about who this guy is and who he's become. He is first and foremost about defending. Obviously, you can just see that in his style. He's comfortable on the rush. Sometimes he'll even lead the rush. But when he's reflecting on the game that was just played, he's not thinking about his points or every once in a while some bar down beauty that he'll rifle. He's thinking about either some sort of team-wide effort, and that's how he looks at everything when he talks to you, as it relates to defense. He's going to look at mistakes that were made, including his own, and he's going to take a magnifying glass to them, and he's going to get better. And that's what you've seen from this player going back to when Jim Rutherford acquired him as a 22-year-old. Mike Sullivan liked him so much that he put him out there as a 22-year-old, flying in the face of every narrative that exists regarding this coach. And Pettersson took it and ran. Hasn't always been super smooth, but man, the last couple of years, are you kidding? So that's my answer to you, Evan. I don't want to find out. The only way this team contends for anything for the remainder of Sid's career, to round this out with how we started the show, is if they defend. Sid knows that. Sullivan knows that. Pettersson knows that. They need a whole lot more guys who not only know that, but can practice it. I appreciate the question. I appreciate everyone listening to Daily Shot of Penguins. We're going to do another one of these tomorrow.